Exactly 52 years ago today, then President of the United States of America, Richard Nixon, stayed in this very room at Shanghai's prestigious Jinjiang Hotel. Now, on the morning of February 28, 1972, Nixon and his team, including his wife Pat and his assistant Dr. Henry Kissinger, left this hotel to head home, having completed what the president would describe as the week that changed the world. And that it did, for it was from this hotel that China and the United States jointly issued the Shanghai Communique, a groundbreaking diplomatic document that heralded the beginning of the long road toward official relations between the two nations. I'm Andy Borham in the seldom seen presidential suite at Shanghai's Jinjiang Hotel, and this is a special edition of Reports on China. It all started in 1971 when American ping pong athlete Glenn Cowan and his Chinese competitor Zhuang Zidong accidentally ended up on the same bus together during a competition in Japan. The pair quickly became friends, and soon the American team was invited to China, becoming the first Americans to officially visit the PRC. This led to a slight thawing of tensions between China and the US, and was soon coined ping pong diplomacy. That paved the way for then National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to make a number of secret visits to Beijing to negotiate with Premier Zhou Enlai about establishing relations and a possible visit by President Nixon, at the time an absolutely scandalous suggestion. And then it was official. On July 15, 1971, as the Cold War and Vietnam War raged on, President Nixon announced his intention to visit Communist China, shocking the world.
I have requested this television time tonight to announce a major development in our efforts to build a lasting peace in the world. There can be no stable and enduring peace without the participation of the People's Republic of China and its 750 million people.
It wasn't until half a year later that Nixon arrived in China for a week-long visit. From February 21st, 1972, he visited Beijing, meeting with then 79-year-old Mao Zedong. He was particularly inspired by the Great War.
And one stands there and sees the wall going to the peak of this mountain and realizes that it runs for hundreds of miles, as a matter of fact, thousands of miles over the mountains and through the valleys of this country. That it was built over 2,000 years ago. I think that you would have to conclude that this is a great wall and that it had to be built by a great people.
The official visit then shifted to Hangzhou and finished up 175 kilometers away in Shanghai, where an important banquet would take place on the night of February 27 to announce the Shanghai Communique to the world. Otherwise known as the Joint Communique of the United States of America and the People's Republic of China, or Shanghai Gongbao in Mandarin Chinese, this document was the first of a final 3 communiques, a hugely significant set of diplomatic documents that mapped out official relations between China and the United States, and are still the basis for that relationship today. The 1972 document has 16 points outlining Nixon's week-long presidential visit and what occurred, areas that both sides agree and disagree on, and the mutual desire to ultimately achieve normalization of relations between the two, which both sides agreed was in the interests of the entire world. Point number 8 acknowledges that there are essential differences between China and the United States in their social systems and foreign policies, while stating that the two sides agreed that countries, regardless of their social systems, should conduct their relations on the principles of respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states, non-aggression against other states, non-interference in the internal affairs of other states, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. The Taiwan question was a sore point that both sides debated for hours over before finally coming to an agreement. The communique has the United States acknowledging there is only one China and that Taiwan is part of China, the US side declared. The United States does not challenge that position. It reaffirms its interest in a peaceful settlement of the Taiwan question by the Chinese themselves. The Shanghai Communique ended with the following. President Nixon, Mrs. Nixon, and the American Party expressed their appreciation for the gracious hospitality shown them by the government and people of the People's Republic of China. In fact, no small part of that hospitality was shown by the staff here at the Jinjiang Hotel, who, as part of a team of hundreds in what was referred to as the Shanghai Reception Office, spent 3 months feverishly preparing for the event in order to ensure everything ran smoothly. The entire 3rd floor of this hotel was occupied by the team from December until the end of February when Nixon flew home. 那么当时您这里3个多月是吧？3个多月。每天都来。每天都来。哦，那每天的，因为 Nixon 还没到的时候啊。哦，那没。夏永芳 is 83. Back in 1972, when she was in her early 30s, she was a staff member with the Foreign Affairs Office of the Shanghai Municipal People's Government, working right here at the hotel in preparation for Nixon's visit.
那么当时我们这些在班子里面的人都感到非常的光荣，能够参与这样一个重大的一个活动。
Her job was quite specific, writing daily reports for the central government in Beijing.
那么我的简报的内容呢，应该简单的说有2大方面。一个方面呢是中方的情况，比如中方的准备工作的情况。另外一个方面呢，就是外方的情况。外方的情况呢，包括美方的一些工作人员、前站人员，直到最后，尼克松在2月27号要正式访问上海，所有这些情况也都要在简报上，尽快的速度报上，向中央汇报。
In collecting her reports, Shah rubbed shoulders with American reporters for the first time.
直到尼克松来访的时候，大批的记者提前来或者当中来，这个时候我就有机会近距离的跟他们在一起交流。美国记者我是第一次比较面对面，那么他们呢就告诉我说是美国人和中国隔绝了20多年，现在顾不上吃饭睡觉，要拼命的工作。所以我对这个话我印象很好，我觉得他们事业心很强，所以这件事情呢，是我外事人生当中的一件最重要的经历。
President Nixon stayed here in the presidential suite on the 16th floor.
哦，到了。这就是我们总统套房。哦，所以是整个楼嘛？对，整个16楼是一套房子。哦，哇哦，这么大。对，然后那边是生活区，这边是工作区。OK， 我们可以过去看一下。OK， 工作区。
It takes up the entire floor and has a kitchen, meeting rooms, an office, and 5 bedrooms, including a separate room for Mrs. Nixon. Well, you can just imagine what kind of meetings have taken place right here in this room. The presidential suite is not available to the public, no matter who you are, and is reserved solely for visiting heads of state. The rest of the time, it's left empty. Well, President Nixon most likely didn't get to enjoy this beautiful private balcony because of security concerns, but he did enjoy his stay at the hotel so much that he came back in 1982 and 1993. But back in 1972, the average Chinese viewed Richard Nixon, a staunch anti-communist, as China's #1 enemy, leading some of the hotel staff to feel conflicted about hosting the man. The Jianzheng Hotel had received hundreds of heads of state by that stage, but this visit was completely different. China and the US were basically enemies. They'd fought each other and had no relations to speak of for more than 2 decades. In fact, this visit was the first time in US history that a sitting US president officially visited a country they had no formal relations with.
Staff were ordered to follow the motto 不卑不亢,不冷不热,友好接待, which asked them to receive Nixon and his team in a friendly manner while being neither humble nor arrogant, neither hot nor cold. They were later convinced by hotel management that they were not serving President Nixon per se, but were instead taking on reception tasks in accordance with Chairman Mao's instructions. With this explanation, staff members were put at ease.
The main event was a massive banquet held right here in this event hall on the hotel grounds, where Premier Zhou Enlai and President Richard Nixon announced the Shanghai Communique, which had only just been finished and signed hours earlier, to the world.
We are now in the final hours of the President's momentous visit. This is the farewell banquet in Shanghai, a few hours before the President ends his unprecedented pilgrimage to peace and flies back to Washington.
You get a little rest today?
I need
1 hour. Me too.
This magnificent banquet marks the end of our stay in the People's Republic of China. This was the week that changed the world.
The joint communique which we have issued today
summarizes the results of our talks. But what we have said in that communique is not nearly as important as what we will do in the years ahead to build a bridge across 16,000 miles and 22 years of hostility which have divided us in the past. And what we have said today is that we shall build that bridge.
Generations in the years ahead will look back and thank us for this meeting that we have held in this past week.
And with that, the world learned about the Shanghai Communique, a document which many argue is the single most important breakthrough in Sino-US relations. And it all happened right here at the Jianzheng Hotel. Oh, 很珍贵。哇，加油农。
哦，不客气。
啊，哇哦，人民日报。Oh, here it is. The very next day, on the 28th of February, as President Nixon and his team were flying home across the Pacific Ocean, the Shanghai Communique was published on the front cover of all of China's newspapers. Now that signified, especially back in 1972, that the Shanghai Communique had been accepted by Chairman Mao Zedong, Premier Zhou Enlai, and the rest of the party.
It was a process that took months of robust secret meetings and the work of hundreds and hundreds of people, and it finally culminated in the unprecedented official visit to China of President Richard Nixon, leading to normal relations between today's 2 largest economies. Right now we're experiencing a bit of a rough patch, and the relationship has endured some of the biggest challenges it has faced since 1972. But hopefully things will improve, which, just like the Shanghai Communique says, is in the interests of the entire world.